Hey there, let's talk about buckles. Properly sewn buckle. This part of the buckle is called the tab. Properly done, it should match the color of the kilt as much as possible and be sewn completely through, not just sewn to the tartan on top, but sewn right through to the canvas and behind. And you can't quite see it here because the thread color matches pretty well, but it's really sturdily sewn on. Far too often what I see is something like this. This was brought to me for repair. Now some clever person out there can fold the cloth, sort of this origami thing, hold it in place with one hand and stitch it all down. But this has only been stitched to the tartan. It hasn't been sewn right through. And when this was moved to accommodate this person's changing figure, the origami, once the stitching was released, just flew apart. So let me show you my method. I have the piece of cloth from the top band. Sometimes the top band won't serve, and in that case I hope that I've planned ahead and I've saved a little bit of cloth off the end so that I can do it from that direction if need be. But in this case the top band will work. I've selected my place where I'm going to lay out the cloth. I use the strap as a guide. Now, I make sort of standard patterns of things. So all of my tabs, I start with a 4-inch piece of cloth. So that end, I measure 4 inches to there. And for each tab, the fold where the tongue comes through, I mark that at 1.5 inches from the end. Now this is laid out for this side. If I was doing one for this side, of course, that 1.5 inch mark would be from this side. We get it as matched as perfectly as possible. I make the cut. This just happens to be okay. So I'm just going to leave that whole width of cloth there. I don't have to shorten it. But on this side, I reduce it to about the same amount. So there we are. There's our length. There's where we're going to be folding over for the buckle to go through. The next thing I'm going to do is knock these corners off. It's going to make it a little bit easier later. Now, let me get this out of the way. There we are, ready to sew. Let's ignore that chalk line. That was from a previous bit of work that I did. So there's my 1.5 inches. Now, when I start sewing this, I start at the opposite corner. I want to finish, when the buckle is going to be there, I want to start and finish down at this end for reasons that'll be clear in a minute. So, I'm going to start, I fold to the chalk line. Now I'm using white thread again so you can see more clearly. I would be using as close a color match as possible. Otherwise, I just do a back stitch. I don't have to do a knot. And I baste this edge down. Now my stitches are a little bit larger than normal because I'm doing this in time so you can see it in real time. I do a back stitch. Now I'm just going to pause for a second and not put the scissors through my cameraman's head. I'm going to notch this piece now and you'll see the reason for that in just a moment. I'm bringing it around. I find my chalk line again. There it is. Another back stitch. Now again, my stitches are a little large here because I'm doing it in real time on camera. Sorry. Caught it on the cloth there. Back stitch on the end. Okay, there we are. That's where it's going to fold. So once again, I'm doing a cutout so that my tongue of the, pardon me, my tongue will pass through the cloth, just one layer of cloth. Now some buckles have ridges to hold the tongue right in the middle. This one doesn't. So I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to make a little mark with a chalk to show where the center is. Now you can see this is why I started and finished at the end, because I'm passing the tartan up through and then I take my tongue through that area that I thinned out, and I'm manipulating it through the yarns. I'm not breaking the yarns. I'm not cutting the yarns. I've wormed its way through. I see sometimes people will cut a hole there and it gets frayed. Now, if you find that you put the thing through and it's at a weird angle, it means you've got it too far one way or the other, so you're going to have to back out and try again. That's another reason why we don't cut a hole. So there it is. It's nicely lined up. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pick off these extra threads. I bend it over like so. I do an overhand stitch, another overcast here. Now my stitch is being a bit large and fast again. I don't bring it right tight up. I give it a little bit of wiggle room right there. I bring her across. Now these stitches I would be doing my best to make sure that the line of my stitches were in the same plane as the twill weave on the cloth to make them a little harder to see. Another back stitch here. I bring it up here. I fold this down. A back stitch there. And now, because I have this gaping open here on the back side, I'm just going to lace it a few times. Get in there. And then back, and I don't even have to tie a knot. I can just do a back stitch and it's good to go. Now, these stitches, you can see how all that went together. And that means that this thing I can precisely put it in place. If at some point in the future I have to do some altering, this thing remains an integral unit. It's not going to fly apart, and it's every